The year is 1749. The heart of Europe's most magnificent palace, Versailles. A corridor of shadow and gold. Dawn light, weak and pale, filters through the tall windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the still air. The only sound is the frantic scraping of a key in a lock. A man, his face slick with a cold sweat, fumbles with a heavy black cabinet. This is the Cabinet des Secrets, the king's private archive. His hands tremble not from the weight of the iron key, but from the weight of his task. He is removing a file. Not just any file. A bundle of letters, tied with a faded ribbon. The paper is soft, expensive. The scent of dried iris and something else, something faintly feminine, clings to the pages. He stuffs them into his coat, the rustle of parchment deafening in the silence. His eyes dart towards the door. A single, misplaced word, a whisper of this theft, and his head will roll. He is stealing the king's secrets. More precisely, he is stealing the secrets of the king's mistress. The court is a gilded cage, a world of whispers, of silk and poison, where a smile can hide a dagger and a glance can spell ruin. And at the center of it all sits Louis XV, the beloved, a monarch growing distant, cynical, haunted by prophecies of doom. His court is a stage, and the most powerful player is not his queen, but his official mistress, Madame de Pompadour. But the king has other appetites, darker, secret hungers. And in the shadows of the palace, a hunt is about to begin. A hunt for a woman who knows too much, and the man desperate to silence her. This is not just a story of illicit love. It is a story of blackmail, of abduction, and of a crime that would stain the very walls of Versailles. Our story truly begins not with a crime, but with a coronation. Louis XV, a king who inherited the throne as a child, now rules a France of breathtaking opulence and deep-rooted corruption. Versailles is a universe unto itself. 5,000 nobles, courtiers, servants, all orbiting the Sun King's grandson. The air is thick with the smell of beeswax candles, powdered wigs, and the cloying sweetness of orange blossoms from the orangery. The halls echo with the rustle of brocade gowns, the delicate click of heels on polished parquet, and the constant, low hum of gossip. It is a beautiful, suffocating machine. And the master of this machine is Jean Antoinette Poisson, the Marquise de Pompadour. She is the king's official maitresse entire, a woman of formidable intellect and ruthless ambition. She controls access to the king. She influences policy. She is the gatekeeper. But even she cannot satisfy the king's deepest, most private longings. Louis is a man weary of the public eye. He creates a hidden network of apartments within Versailles, a labyrinth of small, private rooms known as the Petty's apartments. Here, he escapes the relentless ceremony. Here, he indulges in his passions for locksmithing, geography, and young women. The system is discreet, efficient. A secret staircase, known only to a trusted few, leads to a chamber called the trebuchet. Here, girls are brought for the king's pleasure. They are usually from respectable but obscure families, their visits arranged by a shadowy figure, the king's valet, Lebel. It is a transaction, a night of royal favor in exchange for silence and a modest pension. Most fade back into obscurity, but one would not. Her name is Louisa Murphy. She is the daughter of an Irish soldier and a seamstress. A breathtakingly beautiful girl, with rosy cheeks, a mischievous smile, and a voluptuous figure. She is perhaps 14, maybe 15. A painting by Francois Boucher captures her not as a court lady, but as a naïve, lying on her stomach on a rumpled bed, her back bare, her innocence a carefully crafted illusion. The king sees the painting. He must have her. She is brought to the trebuchet. For a time, she is a perfect secret. Young, uncomplicated, undemanding. But Louise is not content to remain a secret. She has ambition. She bears the king a child. And she begins to dream. She sees Madame de Pompadour, aging, her physical relationship with the king long over, yet holding on to power through friendship and intellect. Louise believes she can replace her. It is a fatal miscalculation. She commits an unpardonable sin. She breaks the rules of the secret game. She speaks of her ambitions. She boasts of her hold on the king. The whispers reach Pompadour. The king, irritated by the complication, casts Louise aside. She is married off to a nobleman of low standing and banished from court. The message is clear: know your place. The secret world must remain secret. Yet, the king's appetite remains, and the machinery of his desire continues to turn. In the bustling, filthy streets of Paris, far from the perfumed halls of Versailles, another girl catches the eye of the royal scouts. Her name is Jean-Louise Tisserand. And then, another, a girl known only as Mademoiselle de Romans. The system works. Until it doesn't. The catalyst for the coming storm is a woman named Marie-Louise O'Murphy. No, not Louise. Marie-Louise is Louise's older sister. She is married to a man named Nicolas Baudouin, a sergeant in the Marechaussee, a kind of military police. They live a modest life. But Marie-Louise knows her sister's history. She knows the king's tastes. And she sees an opportunity. She has a daughter, a young, pretty girl named Marguerite. Marie-Louise devises a plan. She will offer her own daughter to the king's agents. It is her ticket into the gilded world. She makes contact. The arrangements are set. But something goes wrong. The king, for reasons unknown, rejects the girl. Perhaps she reminds him too much of the troublesome Louise. Perhaps the timing is bad. The promise of wealth and status evaporates. Marie-Louise is furious. She feels cheated. She has dangled the ultimate prize before the monarchy and been snubbed. And in her anger, she makes a decision that will send shockwaves through the very foundation of the French state. She decides to blackmail the king. She begins to talk. Not in the guarded whispers of the court, but in the loud, brazen taverns of Paris. She speaks of the secret staircase. She names names. She describes the trebuchet. She threatens to expose the entire sordid system. The whispers become a roar. The story of the King-esque debauched Parc-aux-Cerfs, a mythical house where he kept a harem, begins to circulate in the city. The secret is leaking. And at Versailles, a man known only as the Comte de Saint-Florentin, the minister of the royal household, the man responsible for the king's peace and privacy, is told. The secret must be protected. At any cost. The whispers from Paris solidify into a tangible threat. Scandalous pamphlets, known as libelles, begin to circulate in the capital. They are crudely printed, smelling of cheap ink and sedition. They do not name the king directly, such a thing is unthinkable, but they speak of a great sultan at Versailles, of a hidden harem filled with young girls procured from the gutters. The metaphors are thin, transparent to anyone with a passing knowledge of court gossip. The air in the palace, once heavy with perfume, now feels thick with impending doom. The Comte de Saint-Florentin is a man of cold efficiency. His apartments are orderly, silent but for the ticking of a clock. He receives the reports from his spies in Paris. His face, usually a mask of placid authority, tightens. Marie-Louise O'Murphy is no longer just a disgruntled woman. She is a spark dancing dangerously close to the gunpowder keg of public opinion. The king must be informed. He finds Louis in his private library, surrounded by maps and mechanical devices. The king's hands, usually deft and curious, are still. He listens as Saint-Florentin lays out the facts in clipped, precise sentences. The king does not rage. He does not shout. A profound weariness settles over his features. This is the prophecy he fears, the decay of his reign, the rot from within. He gives no explicit order. He doesn't need to. A single, slow nod is all the authorization Saint-Florentin requires. The state's machinery must now be turned against one troublesome woman. The instrument of this state power is a man named Jean-Baptiste d'Hemery, the Lieutenant General of Police for Paris. He is a master of shadows, a weaver of webs. His agents are everywhere, in taverns, in markets, in the salons of the elite. The order comes down from Versailles, silence Marie-Louise O'Murphy permanently. But this is not a simple assassination. A body in the Seine would only fuel the fires of scandal. The solution must be cleaner, more absolute. They will make her disappear. The plan is set in motion on a chill autumn evening. The sky over Paris is the color of bruised plum. Two men, dressed in the unremarkable clothes of bourgeois merchants, approach the Baudouin residence. They carry no visible weapons. Their most dangerous tool is a folded piece of parchment, sealed with the royal crest, a lettre de cachet. This is an order of imprisonment, signed by the king himself. No trial, no appeal. A name, a signature, and a life is erased. They knock. The door opens. Marie-Louise stands there, perhaps expecting a messenger with a belated payment, a final bribe to secure her silence. She sees the parchment. Her face, once full of ambitious fire, drains of all color. She understands instantly. There is no struggle. To resist is to invite immediate, violent death. Her husband, Nicholas, is paralyzed, a mere spectator to the abduction of his wife. The men are polite, chillingly so. They instruct her to pack a small bag. The sound of her footsteps on the wooden floor is hollow, final. She is led outside into the gathering dark. A plain, closed carriage waits, the horses stamping their hooves impatiently on the cobblestones. The door shuts with a heavy, definitive thud. The lock clicks. Inside, the world is reduced to the smell of old leather and her own fear. The carriage lurches into motion, its wheels rattling over the stones, carrying her away from her life. No one on the street pays it any mind. Just another carriage. Just another secret. The journey is a descent into hell. The carriage does not stop at a Parisian prison. It travels for days, moving ever northward. The air grows colder, damper. The vibrant sounds of the capital fade, replaced by the mournful cry of gulls and the crash of waves. They have reached the coast. The fortress of Le Havre rises from the sea mist, a grim silhouette of stone and salt-weathered walls. This is her new home. The carriage door opens to a scene from a nightmare. The salt-laden wind whips at her clothes. She is handed over to the fortress governor. No words of welcome, only the jangle of keys. She is led down into the bowels of the fortress. The air is thick, frigid, smelling of damp stone and rot. The only light comes from a single, guttering torch held by a guard. His face is impassive, carved from the same stone as the walls. They stop before a heavy oak door, banded with iron. A key grates in the lock. The door swings inward, revealing a small, windowless cell. The straw on the floor is damp. A single wooden bucket stands in the corner. The door slams shut behind her. The lock turns. The sound echoes in the absolute blackness. Marie-Louise O'Murphy has ceased to exist. Back at Versailles, life continues its glittering, relentless march. Balls are held. Music plays. The king, in the public eye, is all grace and majesty. But in his private moments, he is a man haunted. He retreats more deeply into his petty's apartments, into the company of his locks and his maps. The secret system, however, is not dismantled. It adapts. The hunt for new, docile girls continues, but the protocols are tightened. The vetting becomes more severe. The shadow of Marie-Louise has made them more careful, more ruthless. And in a quiet study, the Comte de Saint-Florentin files the report from Le Havre. It is a single line. The person in question has been secured. The case is closed. The king's secret is safe. The crime has been perfect. No blood was spilled in the streets. No official record was made. The gilded facade of the monarchy remains untarnished. But a poison has been introduced into the system. The absolute power of the lettre de cachet, used not against a traitor or a rebel, but against a noisy, inconvenient woman, reveals a chilling truth. The state will devour its own to protect a lie. And in the silent, stone heart of Le Havre, a prisoner begins to count the days, the months, the years, wondering if the world has forgotten her, or if it ever knew she was there at all. The silence that follows Marie-Louise's disappearance is not empty. It is a heavy, pregnant quiet, broken only by the frantic, futile efforts of her husband, Nicolas Baudouin. He petitions the police. He writes to magistrates. He begs for an audience with anyone who will listen. His words are met with a wall of polished indifference. The official response is always the same. There is no record of her. She has vanished, as if she never was. His despair is a small, contained tragedy, invisible against the grand backdrop of the court. The machinery of the state has crushed him, and it does not even notice. But the king's appetite, and thus the system that feeds it, remains. The secret staircase is still used. The trebuchet still receives its temporary guests. Yet, a new figure now operates the machinery. Lebel, the trusted valet, has grown old. His successor is a man even more suited to the shadows, a shady, ambitious porter named Dominique Guillaume Lebel, a relative, some say, but with a far keener instinct for power and self-preservation. He understands the new rules. Silence is not just preferred, it is mandated. The girls must be younger, more pliable, from even more obscure backgrounds. The net is cast wider. It is through this new, more ruthless filter that the most tragic figure of this sordid tale is caught. Her name is Marie-Madeleine Marguerite Vaubernier. History would later know her by another name, one whispered with a mixture of fear and fascination, Mademoiselle de Romans. She is the daughter of a bankrupt textile merchant, a girl of stunning, almost ethereal beauty, with wide, innocent eyes and a gentle disposition. She is living in a convent, her family hoping to secure her a modest future, when she is spotted by one of Lebel's scouts. The offer is made. The temptation, for a girl with no prospects, is immense. A night with the king could mean a pension, security, a life rescued from poverty. She is brought to the trebuchet. The king is captivated. Her innocence is a novelty, a balm to his jaded spirit. Their liaison is not a single night. It continues. And then, the unthinkable happens. She falls in love. Truly, deeply, and disastrously in love with the monarch. And even more dangerously, the king, for a fleeting moment, seems to reciprocate a genuine tenderness. He visits her more frequently. He gives her gifts. In the hidden world of the Petty's apartments, a fragile dream begins to form. And then, she discovers she is pregnant. For Mademoiselle de Romans, this is not a disaster. It is a divine blessing. It is her destiny. She sees the child not as a bastard to be hidden, but as a prince to be acknowledged. She begins to believe in the fairy tale. She whispers her hopes to the wrong people. She carries herself with a new, unmistakable pride. The swelling of her belly is not a secret to be concealed, but a banner of her triumph. She is seen walking in the Parcs of Versailles, her hand resting on her womb, a serene smile on her face. She dares to imagine herself as the new Pompadour. At Versailles, this is not a dream. It is a declaration of war. Madame de Pompadour, the true power, watches this development with cold, calculating eyes. A mistress who inspires genuine affection is a threat. A mistress who bears a son is a catastrophe. The king's official children, the enfants de France, are a matter of state. A royal bastard, born of a genuine love affair, could destabilize the entire succession. The whispers around Mademoiselle de Romans are no longer just salacious gossip, they are politically toxic. The king, under pressure from Pompadour and his ministers, begins to distance himself. The dream is turning to ash. The birth of a son, a healthy boy she names Louis de Bourbon, only deepens her delusion and the court's alarm. She has the infant christened with the royal name. She commissions a painting. It is one of the most audacious, poignant, and foolish acts of the entire era. The artist, Francois Hubert Drouet, depicts her as a goddess of motherhood, seated beneath a tree, gazing adoringly at her son, and pointing, unmistakably, to a bust of Louis XV, as if to say, "This is his father. Acknowledge him." The painting is a silent scream for recognition. At court, it is seen as an act of breathtaking insanity. The painting is the final straw. The system that created Mademoiselle de Romans must now destroy her. The king's affection has cooled, replaced by irritation and fear. She has become a problem. And the state knows only one solution for problems that will not remain silent. The order is given. It is not Saint Florentine who oversees it this time, but the new Lebel, a man with no sentimental attachments. The method is the same, refined by practice. A lettre de cachet is signed. One evening, as she tends to her son in her modest Parisian lodgings, there is a knock at the door. The same polite, implacable men. The same folded parchment. The same chilling courtesy. She is allowed to hold her son one last time. The smell of his skin, of milk and baby powder, is a torture she will carry into the darkness. She is led to a waiting carriage. The door closes. The lock turns. Her destination is the Abbey of the Order of St. Clair, a convent in the town of Reims. It is not a gentle retreat. It is a prison for women of her kind, the inconvenient, the disobedient, the shamed. The doors clang shut behind her. Her head is shaved. She is forced into the rough, woolen habit of a nun. Her world, once filled with the silks and whispers of Versailles, is now defined by stone floors, meager rations, and the relentless chanting of psalms. Her love for the king is now a sin to be repented. Her son, the little boy with the royal blood, is taken from her. She will never see him again. The system has, once again, performed its function flawlessly. The king's secret is safe. The scandal is contained. Mademoiselle de Romans is erased. But the cost is piling up. A woman lies in a cold convent, her mind slowly unraveling. A child is raised in obscurity, a living ghost of his father's sins. And in the heart of the palace, the king continues his reign, the beloved, surrounded by splendor and silence, a man growing more isolated with every life he consigns to the shadows. The boy, Louis de Bourbon, does not vanish. He is a complication of flesh and blood, a living, breathing secret. He is placed with a foster family. His origins a carefully guarded lie. He is given a generous pension, a comfortable life, but no name, no title, no future. He is a ghost in the royal family tree, a branch pruned before it could ever bud. His mother's audacious painting is seized, hidden away in a private collection, a testament to a dream that dared to speak its name and was punished for it. But the machinery of desire and deception is now a permanent, rotting fixture within Versailles. The king's quest for young, uncomplicated companionship becomes a frantic, almost desperate compulsion. The new Lebel, efficient and ruthless, scours the convents and boarding houses of Paris. The girls grow younger, the turnover faster. The system, designed for discretion, now operates with a cynical, industrial rhythm. The Parc-aux-Cerfs, the mythical harem of popular legend, may not have been a single physical house, but it was a very real system, a production line for the king's fleeting pleasures. It is into this decaying world that the final, and most infamous, of the secret mistresses arrives. Her name is Jeanne Bécu, the illegitimate daughter of a seamstress. She would become known to history as Madame du Barry. She is not a naive girl from a convent. She is a courtesan, a woman of the Parisian demi-monde, educated in the arts of pleasure and politics in the salon of a notorious procurer. She is radiant, vivacious, and gloriously unashamed. When Lebel presents her to the king, it is a calculated move. She is the antidote to the troublesome, emotional Mademoiselle de Romans. She is a professional. Louis is instantly smitten. Here is no clinging, ambitious girl, but a woman of the world who understands the transaction. She is fun. She is beautiful. She does not speak of love or demand recognition for children she will never have. She is the perfect, polished final product of the secret system. But in bringing her to Versailles, Lebel makes a catastrophic error. He has broken the system's most sacred rule. The secret must remain in the shadows. To install Madame du Barry as the official maîtresse en titre after Pompadour's death is to parade the king's private vice in the most public arena imaginable. The court is horrified. The diplomats are scandalized. The common people, who had adored the refined Pompadour, mock the new favorite as the queen of the streets. The secret is no longer a secret. It is a public spectacle. The very walls of Versailles seem to recoil. The air, once thick with subtle perfumes, now carries the brash scent of du Barry's Parisian rouge and the whispers of a nation's contempt. And then, the past returns. Not as a whisper, but as a scream. In a damp cell in Le Havre, Marie-Louise O'Murphy has not gone mad. She has grown hard. 4 years, she has endured the stone cold and the salted wind, her body weakening but her will sharpening into a single, focus point, survival and revenge. She learns to manipulate her guards, to trade small favors for scraps of information from the outside world. She hears of the king's new, brazen mistress. She hears the public outrage. She sees a crack in the wall of her prison. She begins to write. Letter after letter, her hands steady despite the cold. She writes to ministers, to magistrates, to anyone with power. She does not beg for mercy. She threatens. She details everything: the secret staircase, the trebuchet, the names of other girls, the blackmail, her own unlawful imprisonment. She has become a chronicler of the king's crimes, and her parchment is her weapon. One of these letters, through a chain of bribes and sheer luck, finds its way out of the fortress. It lands on the desk of a magistrate sympathetic to her plight, or perhaps just hostile to the crown's abuse of power. The dam of silence begins to fracture. The story of the woman in Le Havre can no longer be entirely suppressed. At the same time, within the convent in Reims, Mademoiselle de Romans is losing her battle with silence. The strict regime, the loss of her son, the crushing of her fairy tale, has broken her mind. She is no longer the beautiful girl from the painting. She is a gaunt, haunted figure, her once lovely eyes now vacant. She paces the stone cloisters, muttering to herself about the king, about her son, about the injustice. She is a living ghost, a walking indictment of the system that created and then destroyed her. Her very existence is a secret that the state can no longer fully control. The king is now an old man, his body failing, his reign defined by military losses abroad and corruption at home. The prophecy of after me, the deluge, hangs over him like a shroud. The public scorn for du Barry, the persistent rumors of the women in the fortresses and convents, the scurrilous libelers that flood the streets, it all coalesces into a tide of hatred. The secret mistresses are no longer private indiscretions. They are symbols of a monarchy rotting from the head down. The crimes committed in the shadows of Versailles have begun to fester in the full light of day. The pressure becomes too great. A decision is made in the corridors of power. Marie-Louise O'Murphy, after years of imprisonment, is suddenly, quietly, released. There is no apology, no explanation. She is simply let go, a frail woman stepping back into a world that has moved on without her. She is given a small pension, a final payment for her silence. She disappears into the anonymity of Paris, a testament to the fact that even the state's power has its limits when a secret becomes too loud to ignore. For Mademoiselle de Romans, there is no such release. She remains in her convent prison, her mind lost to the past. She dies there, forgotten by all but the few who remember the beautiful girl who dared to point to the bust of a king and claim him as her own. Her son, Louis Aime, lives a short, obscure life, a permanent reminder of a love that became a crime. He dies without heirs, the last echo of his mother's doomed ambition. The final years of Louis XV's reign are a long, slow sunset steeped in the scent of decay. The king, once called the Beloved, is now a figure of public mockery and private dread. The Palace of Versailles, for all its gilded splendor, feels like a gilded tomb. The whispers are no longer just about mistresses, they are about the very soul of France. The libelers, those filthy, intoxicating pamphlets, now depict the king not as a sultan, but as a vampire, draining the life and treasure from his nation for his own depraved pleasures. The secret is out, and it has poisoned everything. In the spring of 1774, the poison becomes literal. At the Petit Trianon, a small palace retreat, the king falls violently ill. The court physicians are summoned. Their diagnosis sends a wave of pure terror through the palace: smallpox. There is no hiding it. The sores erupt on his skin, a visible manifestation of the corruption that has festered within. He is, for the first time, utterly and completely exposed. There can be no secret liaisons now, no retreat to the petty's apartments. He is a contagious pariah. The final rituals are a macabre parody of court ceremony. He is left alone in his chamber, attended only by a few brave, or ambitious, souls. Madame du Barry is barred from his room. The woman for whom he flaunted all convention is now deemed too lowly to witness his end. The air is thick with the smell of vinegar, used to purify the air, and the cloying sweetness of decaying flesh. The sounds of Versailles, the music, the gossip, the rustle of silk, are replaced by the king's ragged breathing and the solemn chanting of priests administering the last rites. He dies on the 10th of May, 1774, his body so disfigured by disease that his coffin is sealed immediately to prevent a panic. The news races through the palace, down the Hall of Mirrors, and out into the courtyard. A single, chilling cry is heard from the assembled courtiers: "The king is dead. Long live the king." But the cheer for the new monarch, his grandson Louis XVI, is subdued, edged with uncertainty. The fallout is immediate and brutal. Madame du Barry, the symbol of the old king's decadence, is given hours to pack her things. She is bundled into a carriage and exiled to a convent. Her reign of less than 5 years ended with the same swift, impersonal efficiency that once condemned Marie-Louise Murphy. The system that created her now discards her. The new king, a shy and morally rigid man, wants no part of his grandfather's world. The secret staircase is sealed. The petty's apartments are locked. An era of scandal is, on the surface, over. But the consequences of those secret crimes ripple outwards, shaping the destiny of France. The new queen, Marie Antoinette, looks upon the court she inherits and sees a nest of vipers. She retreats from it, creating her own private world at the Petit Trianon, a decision that will later be twisted into a narrative of callous extravagance. The monarchy, its authority shattered by the revelations of Louis XV's corruption, never truly recovers its sacred aura. The financial ruin left by his wars, compounded by the cost of maintaining his secret vices, has pushed the nation to the brink of bankruptcy. The lettres de cachet, the very instruments used to silence the king's mistresses, become a hated symbol of tyrannical power. The stories of the forgotten women in the fortresses, the Marie-Louises and the Marguerites, are woven into the fabric of revolutionary anger. They are proof that the monarchy saw its people not as subjects, but as property to be used and discarded. Historians still debate the true impact of these secret affairs. Were they merely the private sins of a man, or were they a critical symptom of a dying regime? Some argue that the political missteps of Louis XV's reign were far more damaging than his personal life. Yet, it is impossible to separate the two. The same man who lost the 7 Years' War, who saw France's global power diminish, was the man who used the absolute power of the state to kidnap and imprison the mothers of his children. The same system that failed on the world stage failed in its most basic duty, to provide justice. The moral questions linger, dark and unsettled. Where is the line between a king's private pleasure and a state's crime? At what point does personal weakness become a political poison? The story of Louis XV's secret mistresses is not a simple tale of illicit romance. It is a case study in the corruption of absolute power, a demonstration of how the secrets of the powerful, when left to fester, can eventually bring down an entire world. The gilded cage of Versailles still stands today, a monument to a lost age. Tourists walk its halls, marveling at the glitter and the gold. But if you stand in the quiet of the petty's apartments, or gaze down a deserted corridor, you can almost hear the echoes. The frantic scrape of a key in a lock, the soft, terrified rustle of parchment, the heavy, final thud of a carriage door, and the terrible, resounding silence that followed. For the most dangerous secrets are never truly buried. They are simply waiting for the right moment to be unearthed. The end.